To celebrate the start of the season, we've teamed up with Sky Bet. Sky Bet understands the emotional roller coaster that's being a football fan. It will lift you up, break you down, and stitch you back together with hope. But we'll do it all again next week, because for all the pain of a looming relegation or missed penalty, there's nothing quite like the absolute scenes of a last-minute winner. Not for everyone, for the fans. Sky Bet 18+, gambleaware.org.
Right, welcome back to Fourth Tier Fever. It's been a hectic week. There's been 35 goals spanning across 12 games, and then there's another 10 games on Tuesday, and a further one on top of that on the Wednesday as well. So we've got a whole lot to cover, and thankfully, I'm not alone in that task, and I'm joined by Jordan. How are we, mate?
Yeah, I'm all right. Look, we'll get through this podcast recording by one way or another. This is like the 60th attempt at trying to do this through just pure ineptitude and even more technical difficulties in which I didn't even know existed until now. So, but there you go. We're going to get through it one way or another. It's been a good week for Town. We've been, a last-minute goal. Man United and a cup coming up as well. It's all falling into place quite nicely at the moment. But yeah, look, I'm sort of letting you do it because, it was. You should have heard me earlier. Trying to do these intros. It was an absolute mistake. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, we're quite lucky that you guys don't get to see our outtakes. Otherwise, I don't think anyone would watch us.
They're straight deleted. And I'm sort of half glad.
One day some of these bloopers will come out. One day. But today is not that day, thankfully.
One day I won't have access to the delete button. So that won't happen.
We've got some old ones. We'll dig them out. Anyway, I think we should probably get into it because there is so much to cover. And I'm gonna come to my team first. I have to come to my team first. We just scored 5 goals against Cheltenham, and yes, I know people are gonna say it's only Cheltenham, and yes, it is, but it's also the same Cheltenham that held Chesterfield to 2 and Cambridge to 1. So to really take the sword to him like that. I mean, it's happy days for us. It's probably the most complete performance we've had in a very, very long time. 5 different goal scorers, defence rock solid, and then just the out of possession stuff as well. If we lost the ball, we were so good in transition, getting that ball back. And I mean, I know Cheltenham are a pressing team. I think we showed them how to do it properly. And I do think they tactically probably got it wrong, but you can only beat what's in front of you. So for us, huge win and a big statement that we can hopefully build on further when we have to face Crawley in the midweek. But that's a problem for a few days' time. What did you make of our game, Jordan?
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm obviously at the Grimsby game, so I'm checking my phone pretty much all the time. I get all sorts of goal notifications, and I just noticed the fact you were 3-0 up in, was it the first 25 minutes or so, 5-0 to finish. As you've mentioned, 5 different goal scorers, another clean sheet. I think it was only, truth be told, I think it was only going to be a bit of time before I think MK sort of got a result like that really kick-started their season. It's not like it's been a bad start either. I mean, a win and a draw in the first 2, going to Barrow and winning there was a decent result. But sometimes you just sort of need that result where it's all sort of just clicked. And that's what it looks like. As you mentioned, 5 different goal scorers. So some lovely goals in there as well. That Gilby goal in particular, lovely finish. But the build-up and that to for him to get to that. I mean, the Hepburn Murphy goal's a really good finish, probably because it just looks so satisfying when it looks like did it hit both posts, or it sort of nearly did in a way, but I could be wrong there.
Yeah, he kind of hit the right one and then side netting it on the other side of the goal. But I tell you what I loved about that goal most was it was actually the build up to it. The fact that Offord won the header from Cheltenham's goal kick. He had 2 men around him, beats both of them. Hepburn Murphy holds off his man, lets the ball bounce over him straight into Patterson, and we're away. there were just so many plays like that over the course of the game, and it just felt like, as you say, things are starting to click. But at the same time, I do think Cheltenham played into our hands a little bit, if I'm being honest. Tactically, they got it all wrong. It's a very brave thing to do, to try and press us at Stadium MK. And I think based on that, I don't think we're going to see many teams doing that again, because it didn't work. It really didn't work. And they're lucky it was 5, to be honest.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, you've got the firepower and you've got the quality to put them away, where it's to sort of catch them cold. I mean, it's what you'd expect. I mean, look, MK Dons are favourites to go up for a reason. Let's not beat around the bush. But yeah, look, as you've mentioned, 5 goals, clean sheet. Lots of positives to take from that. As for Cheltenham, on the other hand, I mean, 3 games, 3 defeats. I know that obviously they played MK and they've played Chesterfield. Chesterfield have won all 3 of their games so far. In that one, they're one of 2 sides yet to score a goal, which is a concern thing. You don't really want to go a long time without, breaking your duck, let alone, you sort of want to get your first points on the board as quick as you can, but you also want to get your first goal as nice and early. I know that Shrewsbury scored 1 goal in the cup. I mean, that was against us and it was a fluke, but it's sort of, but obviously the league's the bread and butter, isn't it? And you sort of need to get it going quick, sooner rather than later. There is questions I do wonder about Cheltenham. I think so. I mean, it's quite hard to judge after 3 games, but I think you mentioned that your bet for Cheltenham to be relegated might be maybe a half decent one. I'm really not sold on Cheltenham I think when you go on, I think the one thing that we mentioned in the chat was with Michael Flynn, I think praising was it Scott Bennett, the defender?
Yes.
Praising a defender which was part of a defence that conceded 5 goals. I mean, just on face value, I'm not really too sure of that. Look, there's a lot of work to do. There's still a lot of uncertainty. I think they need that takeover done. Obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty around certain players, but I just don't know. Look, granted, they've had a difficult start, but I'm not seeing a great deal that convinced me that they're going to do it. They're just lacking in terms of quality, in terms of threat. I know they signed Josh Martin for the season the other day, so I know he's been on trial and there for a little bit. I'm really not sold on them on a lot of aspects. I mean, look, it's easy to say. Not a lot of teams are going to go to Stadium MK this season and get a result. Never mind trying to play attacking, pretty football now. You're just not against a poor one side, not against a side like MK, as we've mentioned, that have the squad that they have. It's just not going to happen. Or very few teams are going to take away something from that. Did we expect Cheltenham to walk away with anything? Let's be honest, no. It's just as it is. I mean, look, League 2 is a funny league, but I don't think even the most optimistic fan would have probably thought that Cheltenham would walk away with anything, and that proved to be the case. But yeah, look, I don't really want to take anything from MK. You score 5 goals at home and you win quite comfortably. Boost the goal difference already. 7 goals scored, 0 conceded already in the league. It can only be seen as a positive after 3 games. So it's all on them, really.
I'm glad you've mentioned that. We're the only team yet to concede in the league, so that's quite fun. But no, as you say, I do have my concerns with Cheltenham. This whole takeover business, I think, has really messed them up. And for me, it's a sign of an emergency when you're bringing in Josh Martin just based on his on his recent experiences with Newport, with Notts, even spanning back to when he was with us. He's kind of, I don't really know how he's got another EFL move, to be honest. I mean, in fairness to him, he was probably one of their better players, and he did get one of their only 2 shots on target from a free kick. But if that's kind of all they've got, I'm a little bit worried. They need a whole lot more, in my opinion. And yes, they've played a couple of tough teams. You could potentially argue all 3 teams because Cambridge was their opening day game, I believe. But still, there needs to be signs of progress, and I don't think we've necessarily seen that from them yet.
We'll look at it this way. Look, they've got a big few weeks coming up. Big few weeks, just as I've mentioned, in terms of the takeover, in terms of the players that futures that could be seen elsewhere. There's still a lot of work to be done, and whether maybe Mike Flynn's the right man, I don't know. I still have my reservations on him. I don't really want to jump the gun straight away and say that he'd probably not after 3 games, but you do start off. you do have that in the back of your mind a little bit, especially with the takeover. Although I think Mike Garlick does seem to be in supportive of Flynn at the moment, but we'll have to see what that. There's a big few weeks ahead. There's no doubt about. I think for Cheltenham, they need to impress really, and they need to do the right things because I question if they have at the moment.
Yeah, I'd say that's a totally valid viewpoint. All I'll say is they're lucky they didn't even have to face Aaron Collins because he's still injured. Otherwise, another hat trick in 5 minutes could have been on its way.
Can you stop
Anyway,
that?
It had to get mentioned at some point.
You've got Patterson, that's enough. You've got
2 goals, 2 assists already for him in 2 games.
You've got other half decent strikers that'll do a job in pretty much any League Two side. Come on, I'm not. Let's while he's out, let's just focus on what you've got, okay? Instead of hat tricks in 5 minutes in pre-season. It's pre-season, mate.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll just focus on Patterson getting a goal and an assist in every game he started.
Fine. At least he's playing at the minute.
Valid point. Anyway, I think let's move on. Let's go to a team that, well, I'd say struggled in the first couple of games, but their first 2 games were us and Chesterfield, and that's Barrow, and they've got a win on the board finally, and it's against Notts, who have also been, I don't know, I'd say underperforming what their supporters would expect. I think perhaps personally we saw this coming a little bit. Not performing as well as you'd expect them to, I suppose. I don't know. What's your take on Notts at the minute? Because for me, they're all over the place. I just don't like the way they're approaching things.
I mean, this is a surprise that they've really started the way that they have. I mean, we've made a lot about Notts. We've talked about Notts for a fair bit, and we all agreed probably at the time that maybe moving on from Stuart Maynard was the correct decision. I still think it probably was. To replace him with Martin Patterson certainly raised a fair few eyebrows. He's certainly someone that seems like he can say the right things, but in terms of actually putting it onto the pitch at the minute, I think there's no doubt he's struggling. I think it was always we've mentioned a couple of times. I think it was always an appointment I think fans were going to struggle to get behind. I think going off his previous spells at Burton, which, I mean, if it wasn't for a bit of luck in the end, I know they lost 3-0 on the final day at Fleetwood, I believe. That was all relegated Fleetwood. I think it was them. I think it was Cheltenham. I think it was Cheltenham losing at Stevenage, which pretty much kept him up. But he won like 3 games since he came in. He didn't seem like a very likable bloke then, with really much know-how. And I get it. It's still relatively new to management. You've got to start somewhere. But 3 games in, he really does seem out of his depth. Truth be told. I'm really getting to that point. I don't think the players are immune from criticism either. It sounded like another really poor performance, actually. It's a great win for Barrow. I mean, they're up and running in the league now with the need of that. 2 difficult games to start the season. And, like I said, good win against Notts. They've done their bit. With the last minute winner as well, when it looked like Notts had nicked something right at the end. I think it was on the 89th minute they scored, and then Barrow scored like 97th. It was very late. But 3 games in, and I think the reaction on Notts Twitter said it all. It was quite a toxic place at the minute. I know they've got Shrewsbury in the league on Wednesday night, which we'll get onto, but it feels like a massive game already for both, especially Notts. I know that Shrewsbury haven't scored yet. They've yet to pick up a point, yet to pick up a win. No, they have picked up a point, sorry, yet to pick up a win. And then Notts, who are yet to win as well. I'm really not convinced at all. I know there's been some interest. I'm not sure recruitment-wise. I'm not sure. I mean, look, it's always going to be big on losing David McGoldrick, but from the stuff, I don't really want to speculate too much. But it sounds like it just sounds like he wasn't really valued there, and it's proven to be quite a big mistake because he started off flying for Barnsley. If you've seen him in League One, he's a man. Even at his age, full of quality, but the players that they've got, I don't know. I think it just looks a really toxic place to be at the minute with Notts. It's a shame because it looked like they've been building something for years and years, but it just seems like they've sort of starting to throw that away a little bit, starting to lose their way. Maybe not investing in transfer, maybe not investing as much as they maybe were. I don't know. I don't really know what the issue is. I'm just looking at it from the outside. But it was always an appointment in which, did raise a fair few questions. And I think we're already starting to ask these questions 3 games early. I think he said something like, judge them after 10 games and see. I mean, 3 games in, 1 point, and they've been far from impressive with any of the games. I mean, it's not a good look already. And I feel like stuff has got to change pretty quickly. Otherwise, the writing could be on the wall pretty quickly. Not so an ambitious club. We know their direction and how we want to do. Whether you agree with the direction and how they're doing it is a different story. But it just feels wrong. The whole thing at their place just feels wrong at the minute. And we'll have to see where it goes from here. But I'm really not sold. I think there's a reason why we put them about mid-table-ish at the minute. And yes, it's still early days, of course. Things can change. But it's just proving what I thought at the minute. It's just been less than convincing. And that's putting that nicely, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. I think the first sign of it for me was the fact that they signed, 4 players before they even had the manager in. Like, that to me, is a really strange decision. And then to bring in the man they did, which we've obviously discussed before, that for me was alarm bells, having seen his previous with Burton, as you were saying before. But I think these sort of things are starting to rub off on the pitch a little bit. I mean, watching the goals back, that first one, how are you going to let a man just stand totally unmarked in the 6-yard box? Like, come on. Like, just think about it. Just that they had plenty of players back that could have covered that, and they just didn't. I will give them at least a little bit of credit for fighting back a bit and getting the goal. It was a great cross from Cerula and a lovely header by Matt Dennis, but then they went and threw it all away with more laughable defending. So I get Barrow's a difficult place to go, but you've got to show more, especially if you're a club that has ambitions of leaving this league at the right end rather than the wrong end. And to be honest, I think 2-1 and having it be a close game that goes down to a late goal, I think that flattered Notts. I think that flattered Notts entirely. And to be fair, I think we do have to give credit to Barrow as well. I know their fans were a little bit concerned after the first couple of games, but I think there are signs. There are signs that they can still be a decent side, and we have to mention that striker signing, Reece Healy, until January. How? He is such a good player. If they keep him fit, he scores goals. Enough said.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, he's an excellent pickup. He's been away. He's done it at higher levels. I think it's mainly more fitness based, as what you've mentioned, keeping him fit. It does sound like he's had a little bit of trouble over past couple of years. So maybe it's just a little bit of a reset that's maybe needed for him. And look, Barrow's a half decent club, and we've already seen them this summer make some pretty interesting transfers. We mentioned the other week when they signed Tom Barkhausen, of course, with championship experience and quite a lot of it, and quite a little bit in League One as well. So they're no stranger to these sorts of signings. But they'll be hoping that he hits the ground running. I know Tyler Walker was one of the scorers yesterday. I've mentioned a few times, they do seem like gambles, but there can be good gambles if the correct things fall into place. And I don't think Healy's any different. He'll get you goals. He'll get you goals, no doubt about it, if he can stay on the pitch. And I was pretty impressed with the sign. I can't lie.
I mean, he helped us get out of League Two. That's all I'm saying. That's a very good signing, in my opinion. Right, I think let's move on. Let's come to what I think is probably the best game for the neutral from the weekend, and that's Bromley Fleetwood. 2-2 draw. And I mean, obviously Fleetwood have started the season very, very well with a couple of very convincing wins, I'd say. But Bromley, I think, have kind of, as always, kind of gone under the radar a little bit. And I think maybe this kind of result will maybe make people sit up and notice a little bit more. And I'd actually like to highlight the fact that neither of the goals were cheek. I know he got one of the assists, but they're finding other routes to goals, which is great to see. I know both were set pieces, but it's different goal scorers. They're not quite as dependent on Cheek, at least not so far this season, which for me is a really promising sign. Where are you at with Bromley at the minute?
Yeah, look, they're just a really good progressive club, aren't they? And I'm not trying to blow smoke up Andy Woodman's backside or anything like that. We love you, mate. But no, look, they do things properly. They do things the right way, and they look really good at doing it. We know that they've had this upward trajectory that they're an ambitious club that don't really want to rest in this league. And I think more people are somewhat opening their eyes to see. Of course, we should probably mention Andy Woodman signing of a new contract this week at Bromley. I mean, whatever they do for the rest of the summer transfer window, that is the best piece of business they will do. He deserves his crack at higher level just for the achievements that he's done. Of course, knocking Ipswich out of the cup the other day. They've had some great cup memories already in the past couple of years or so, and of course, getting promoted into the EFL for the first time in their history. In their second season there, they'll be disappointed on the game. In the end, conceding dead late on. Where great for James Norwood. I know we've mentioned Fleetwood, and they've had a very good start to season, but so are Bromley. They're not a team in which, like I said, we've mentioned Bromley a few times. You think they're a bunch of big units, and they are. There are some big players in there, but you probably wouldn't expect some of the quality that they do have. They gel together so well. They've not made a lot of the squad is near enough the same, other than a few additions. I mean, keeping the squad together is so important, and Bromley have done that pretty well, and they just sort of added to it with a little bit more quality. Look, they're going to be a tough team to beat this year. They were last year, and you sense that maybe they're not actually far off in terms of maybe competing for the top 7. I know that Andy Woodman was frustrated that they didn't make it in the end. They've had a couple of results that let them down eventually. But it shouldn't be seen as a failure either way. We was full of high praise for Bromley last season, in the season that they had. Look, there's some good stuff happening at Bromley. I think they've got a new stand that's being built as well. They're doing all right for themselves, and it's interesting to see. It's certainly a club that I'm keeping a close eye on. There's a lot of good stuff happening over there at the minute.
Absolutely. But to be fair, I think we've also got to give a bit of credit to Fleetwood, because obviously they've, like we said, they've hit the ground running. It looked like they were going to lose a game, but came back with a bit of a fight back at the end. Last minute goal, 90+3 from Norwood, I believe it was. And that they just look like a very solid side, and at least statistically, this game looked quite even. These are two sides that, to me, both look strong, and based on that game in particular, I think both will continue to be strong for at least the next few weeks. But I don't know. What do you make of Fleetwood's start?
Yeah, I totally agree. Look, I think if you probably ask anyone, would you take 2 wins and a draw? Would you take 7 points out of a possible 9? I mean, you'd absolutely take it. I mean, looking at the games, last minute equaliser at Bromley, I think you're probably taking that every day of the week. And then they've gone to Barnet and won 2-0, and they've beaten Bristol Rovers by 2-1. So they've had a very good start. 6 goals scored in those games as well, 2 goals in each of them. And I think that goal yesterday, that Norwood goal, the last minute equaliser, I think would have done them the world of good, that they can go to these sorts of places and get something from them. Like I said, I think we sort of had half high hopes for Fleetwood. Like, you could see there was something going on there. We've talked about Pete Wild for ages, how much of a good gaffer he is. And the recruitment has been quite smart, and certainly their recruitment, it just looks like they're recruiting to play a certain way, and which is not necessarily a bad thing. They've certainly hit the ground running. They was unlucky to lose to Barnsley in the cup as well, lost on penalties. I don't think they could have asked for much more. I know they've got Crewe next, so one of the 2 sides that have won all 3 of their games, so that will certainly be a challenge for them. Certainly want to keep a close eye on there, whether they can get something. They are at home for that one, but no, that they started off all right, and there's a fair bit to like about Fleetwood. I do like their squad. I do. There are some good players in that squad. If they play right up to their strengths, they'll cause problems this year. I've got no doubts about it.
Yeah, for sure. And at the very minimum, they've kept an unbeaten start, as have Bromley, for that matter. And speaking of unbeaten starts, we're going to move on to a team with a perfect record, and that is, of course, Chesterfield, coming out 3-1 winners over Bristol Rovers. And this was one of the early kickoffs, so I did manage to catch a little bit of it. I've got to say, Chesterfield looked very, very good to me. And to be fair, even just watching the highlight packages from the other games, they've also looked pretty controlled, pretty dominant in every game they're playing, creating plenty of chances. There are, slight weaknesses at the back, but you're not going to get many goes at it against them. It's a case of if you get a chance, you have to finish it off. Otherwise, you're just back under the cosh for another 20 minutes, or however long. But I think this is, again, it's just another convincing win for me.
Yeah, and it's hard to really argue. I mean, you look at it, 70% possession, 20 shots compared to Bristol Rovers' 7. 10 shots on target compared to Bristol Rovers' 3. Albeit, you look at it, they won 3-1, but the goal for them to put them 2-1 up was scored in the 84th minute, and for 3-1 was scored in the 88th. So they sort of had to bide their time with that, especially playing the second half against 10 men, as Bristol Rovers were. But yeah, they just find a way, and that's a sense of a good side. It's not for the lack of trying either. Like I said, stats wise, looking at it, they've dominated the game. It was somewhat what I sort of expected. I sort of had a little bit of hopes for Bristol Rovers maybe at the start of it. It'd just be fair them if it sort of went to a place like Chesterfield to go and pick up a result. They haven't done that. They did equal. I was more shocked that they actually equalised in that game, playing with 10 men at the time as well. But I don't think you can ask for much more from Chesterfield. 3 wins from 3, and there's a reason why I've put them in as my favourites to win the league. It's why I've picked them over MK Dons. It's certainly because I didn't want to put MK Dons there. But genuinely, I honestly think we sort of expect it from both Chesterfield and MK Dons. MK Dons more so with the money, but let's not pretend that Chesterfield have not spent, because they have. I mean, the squad that they've got there. I mean, they've got Berry back as well. If you've noticed the other day as well, there's just quality in that team, and they're just glittered with it. And I really like what they're doing. They're going to take some beating this year, and like I said, I don't think they can really ask for much more. 3 wins from 3. I mean, what do you really want? Give them the title now? Probably not.
I don't think I will. Thank you very much.
They're not even first. Really, we should be giving it to Crew on that element.
Well, yeah, fair point. But I think we'll wait for the other 43 games or whatever. But no, I mean, it was really, really good by Chesterfield. The only disappointing thing was that goal, as you mentioned. It was a little bit of a scrappy one to concede. But if you're capable of going and putting a couple more down the other end, I suppose it doesn't matter quite as much. From a Bristol Rovers perspective, though, this is another rough game. I mean, Luke Southwood's made 7 saves, so it could have been a whole lot worse, and they could have been out of the game long before they were. And don't get me wrong, obviously they were pegged back a little bit by the red card. I'm not necessarily sure how I feel about that red card. I mean, I know he was kind of through on goal, but also I don't think there's that much in it. I think it's just a case of Dobro's just played a very clever game there, and it's worked. But equally, I think the defending still has to be better from Bristol. If your keeper's having to make 7 saves, that's a little bit of a problem. And if you look at the 3 goals, they're variations of crosses. So at the minute, all you have to do to beat Bristol Rovers is just chuck as many crosses into the box as you can. Eventually, they will cave in. And it's not the message you really want to be sending out after 3 games. They're still struggling, and it's not looking like it's going to get any better yet. Obviously, like we say, it's not many games, and they've got plenty of time to turn it around. But you do need to get that first win at some point because you don't want things to spiral.
Get crosses into the box, right? That's noted for when we play Bristol Rovers in a few weeks. But yeah, I totally agree. I think it's not so much the win; it's more just getting on the board, as well as we've mentioned. 3 games, 3 defeats for a side that we thought, there's still plenty of time. Like I said, we're only 3 games in, but for a side in which we expected quite a bit of, I think there was quite a few people certainly had them in and around certainly in the playoff places, even pushing for top 3. I think I had them third. 1-0 defeat at home to Harrogate. They've lost 2-1 at Fleetwood. They lost in the cup to Cambridge, which sounded pretty poor. And then that defeat to Chesterfield, where they weren't far off actually from getting something out of that. I know they brought in another defender, Kakpala Lepata, I think his name is, from Barnsley, Polish. But look, I think it's become pretty clear quite early on that Darryl Clark's got his work cut out for him, isn't he? I think it's somewhat, we're getting to that point. You can tell he's been frustrated with the players and some of the performances that he has done already. I think, especially in the cup against Cambridge, you can really see how frustrated he was. He was quite snappy at one of the questions, which he didn't see he just doesn't see positives after going away and losing 3-1, which it's an interesting mindset to have, but it's a good one. But look, I think Bristol Rovers fans will trust him because they know the history there, but there's clearly some work to be done. I don't think he's made. There's no secret that he looks like he wants to add to his squad. I think they need to. There's a couple of players. Maybe we expected a little bit too much too soon from Bristol Rovers. Obviously, relegation last year wouldn't have done them any good. And it's clearly not. The start that they have done has been not great at all. There's only so much I can say. Let's just wait and let's just see what happens. I think, Darryl Clark's got a lot of goodwill on the bank. I don't think a lot of it is his fault. Actually, he has come in and it's been obviously on the back of a relegation. There's been a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of players that are still there that probably should need to move on or something like that. So it's going to take a little bit of time, and that he'll have the backing of the fan base. But yeah, I think the longer it goes on, I think the longer you do start to ask those questions of certain things, not necessarily on Clark, but just on like the players and whether their hearts are in it, and maybe stuff. I do maybe get that. But yeah, like I said, we look at how we like, but they weren't far off actually from getting a result with 10 men, which would have been a very, very good result. But yeah, it is important to get on the board as quickly as you can. And the longer that goes on, like I said, there's more concerns that do come their way. If I just want to have a quick look at their next game, they've got Oldham and Cambridge their next 2. So both at home. That I think if you're really going to start to get something going, I think you're probably looking at those 2 games with them being at home.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's a case of you just need that first win. Stop the rot, especially as a team that's just come down. You just need to get yourselves up and running, and because, like I said, we know there's good players there. It's just I think it's a mentality thing, Bristol Rovers, but that's a deeper discussion for another day.
To celebrate the start of the new season, the Fourth Tier Fever podcast has teamed up with Sky Bet to celebrate the world's wildest emotional rollercoaster, being a football fan. Sky Bet understands the beautiful chaos of being a football fan. It'll lift you up, it'll break you down, and it'll stitch you back together again with those little bits of hope. Because for all the pain of a looming relegation or missed penalty, there's nothing quite like the absolute scenes after a last-minute winner that leaves you hugging people you've never met in your life. For me, we've had relegations out of the Football League and we've had demotions in our time, but I'd happily go through that again just to relive those unbelievable high memories of back-to-back promotions at the home of English football, although I hope we don't get relegated anytime soon. Being a fan isn't for everyone. Some people say it's just a game and question why we shout at the TV or standing in the pouring rain just to see our team lose 1-0. But to those who get it, there's nothing quite like it. The highs, the lows, the heartache and the glory, it's all part of the ride. And is it worth it? You bet it is. Not for everyone. For the fans. Sky Bet. 18+. BeGambleAware.org.
I suppose I've held you off for long enough now. I'll let you talk Grimsby. Grimsby, of course, beat Newport 2-1, first fourth-tier Fever matchup of the season. Jordan against Kieran. Jordan came out on top, a bit like all our quiz things that you guys appear in. Always seems to happen. All I'll say before I hand it over to you is it was a great finish by Courtney Baker-Richardson. Just a shame it was at the wrong end.
It certainly was. Yeah, look. I'm going to start by praising Newport a little bit before we get into that. I think they sort of surprised me a little bit. You could see that they had a bit of a plan, and Nick Zanev in goal in particular had a very good game. And I think if it wasn't for him, I think we'd have won that game probably by about 4 or 5. Look, he saved Jace Cabby's penalty. He made just a couple of worldly saves. There was one of Camet Janet in the second half, in which was a right rippler. And he caught it well. So, but no, you can see what Newport are all about. You see that they've got an idea. They've got a way of playing. They're tough to beat. They look very compact, and I've got no doubt that if they continue to play like they did yesterday, they'll be fine. They'll be more than fine. I said that with Harrogate. I think I was more intrigued by some people's suggestions of Harrogate because they just seem to do it. Newport, I already had a lot of questions on anyway. I felt like quite a lot of them was answered. There's maybe 1 or 2 aspects of their game that could probably work on. But no, look, I think they'll be frustrated not to take a point away from that, considering the circumstances. But look, I think overall, you look at the overall balance of the game, I think we thoroughly deserve the victory. As you've mentioned, a brilliant finish from Courtney Baker-Richardson, just in his own net. He's someone that's been desperate for a goal for the longest time now, and that's not really going to do him any good. We just seem to somewhat pepper them without really creating proper clear-cut chances. There was a couple, but not as many. I mean, second half, other than a 10-15 minute spell at the start of the second half. From the 60th minute, since they equalised, which I thought was quite a poorly defended goal, actually, just left Matt Baker alone in the box. I sort of got the sense, and I put it in the chat, actually, if there was going to be a side that won the game, I felt it was going to be Newport. We looked a little bit sluggish and a little bit tired near the end of the game, and they will come at us a little bit, but the one thing I love about this team already is the character that's shown. We've shown it last week at Harrogate, and this week the substitutes made a big impact when they came on. Evan Curry got the assist. Darren Burns was a part of that attack. Reece Staunton was excellent when he came on as well. I think he deserves a shout out. And it's a typical Kieran Green goal to win it in the 94th minute. Really good build up for it, and it sort of just trickled in from that ball to Green. It's just sort of just trickled in. It looked like an age to go in, but you could just hear the relief around Ludlow Park when that went in. The burst of noise when that goal went in was it was pretty good yesterday. And like I said, it was probably the least we deserved. I think we were the better side over the game. And look, it's been a very good start to the season. Look, 2 wins and a draw, 7 points out of possible 9, top goal scorers in the league. We scored 8 goals. But the thing is, with those, we scored 8 goals. But really, we could have really scored about 5 more than that. We genuinely could have done. Like I said, the only criticism yesterday was just not putting the game to bed. It was a bit like Tuesday. It shouldn't have really taken us until the 90th minute to make sure that the win was secured against Shrewsbury. And even again, I think it would have been bit of an injustice, actually, if we didn't go on and win the game. It would have been a very good point for Newport, but look, credit to the team. I'm enjoying watching my football club again at the minute, and I know we've mentioned this a few times, there's a real buzz around the place at the minute, not just for the fact that we're about to be playing Manchester United at home in the Carabao Cup, in a week and a half's time, which, again, that has certainly helped it massively, for the excitement there. It's the first time we're playing Man United since 1948. But just the way that we're going, and you can see what we're trying to do, and the football that we're playing, I'm having fun watching my football club. We've got it's only 3 games. I'm trying to not get carried away at the minute. We've got some tough, a couple of tough away games next week. I mean, Walsall away on Tuesday night's a tough one. We've not had the best of records against Walsall, and we're coming up against Accrington, who I believe have a free week now as they're not playing Tranmere in the league, as now they're playing in their Carabao Cup game against Burton, which was called off because they can't pay the electric bill. So so they might be a little bit more prepared than we are, but we've got a big squad, and if we're gonna have to utilise this squad. There's a lot of games coming up, a couple of double game weeks, and I know I keep going on a little bit here as well, but this isn't. We've still got important players to come back. We've still got Danny Rose to come back. We've still got Jason Daddy's Van Thorson to come back. Yeah, we've still got Zach Gilson to come back. We've still got Jude Soonsup Bell to add into the mix once he's up to speed. It's really exciting, and it's going to cause a headache for David Artell potentially if they're all back and firing. We've got some very good depth. And transfer-wise, I don't think we need many more. Probably a couple more, perhaps in one or two positions. But dare I say we look the real deal? Because I genuinely think we do. I'm trying to not be getting excited as I am at the minute, and it'll probably might come crashing out. But look, I'm more than happy with the start. More than happy with how we're trying to do things. The goals we're scoring, and the ruthlessness as well, and how we're winning these games. We've pretty much been the best side in all those games by a fair distance. Probably not Harrogate, but certainly the Crawley game, certainly yesterday's Newport game, and certainly the Shrewsbury game in the Cup. We was by far and away the best side in those three games, and we've got what we've deserved at the end of it. So, let's see. 3 games in, 43 more to go. Let's see what happens, but I cannot complain at the start we've had at all. It's been very good.
I know how you're feeling, mate. I'm trying not to say too much, but it's nice when the football's going well. That's all I'll say for now. We've got one last major game to cover that we want to have a little bit of a deeper look at before we rattle through the others. That is Tranmere against Gillingham, which was 1-1. Very potentially could have been a 1-0 if it wasn't for a late goal for Gillingham, and then a whole debacle with a red card as well, which to me just looked like Max Clark essentially talking himself into a second yellow. But a bit of a strange game. I mean, I backed Tranmere in the predictions because we had Tranmere fans in the comments telling me that they've got goals in them, and to be fair, for most of the game, my prediction would have been right. But sadly for me, because I think that cost me the round, I don't think we've added it up yet, but I think I may have lost because of that goal. So thanks for that, Tranmere. But no, but going back to the actual football itself, Gillingham's unbeaten run from I think about March carries on, and that was under John Coleman still as well, by the way, which is insane. I mean, they're just tough to beat, aren't they?
It's Gareth Ainsworth personified, isn't it? And he's got the sense of that goal yesterday that they scored last minute. I mean, it was another one in which was just not a pretty goal at all. Let's not beat around the bush, but it's the fact that they've managed to nick something from the game, and I mean that's what you're gonna get. They're gonna keep pushing to you. Maybe if they're not quite playing at their best, it just seems like a typical away performance in which, of course, Gillingham will be the happier of the two that they've got a point from that in the end. Frustrating from Tranmere. Good signs from them, though. Another goal from Amari Patrick. I really like him. I really like what Amari Patrick's all about. Really skillful player, but he can half-hit a ball as well. At times. Like I said, we do. Tranmere scored another goal in that game. So, judging by their tally, if I'm just going to have a quick look now, I mean, they scored 6 goals in 3 games. I mean, they're not doing too bad at the minute. On that sense, 5 points picked up, a win and 2 draws. I think they might have been frustrated in the manner of those 2 draws, considering the Gillingham one was very late, was in the 90+ minute, and the one against Colchester, which was like 87th, 88th. So they've come close to winning those games. That's the thing about it. Maybe they might feel a little bit unlucky that they might not have had more points than what they currently have. So I don't think it's the worst of starts for them. But no, it's a half decent one for Gillingham. in the grand scheme of things. I mean, look, 5 points for them as well, a win and two draws. Again, they just look. I mean, 3 goals scored from the 3 games. I mean, they've conceded 2, which is all right. You don't expect Gillingham to concede a lot of goals. They never do. I mean, 3 goals scored. I'm not going to jump into criticism anyway, especially on this. I don't think it's quite warranted just yet at the minute, considering that they've gone away, a side like Tranmere, and they've picked up what looks to be a very decent point. But maybe there's that. Look, Gareth Ainsworth knows what he's doing. I know I've talked about that, and I do have some concerns, but you just sort of just leave it with him. Really, he knows how to. I say grind out results. I think that's probably the best way. He's sort of a little bit of a master at doing it. But yeah, like I said, there's no doubt in my mind that Gillingham will be happier with the 2 sides yesterday with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think grinding out the result is probably the perfect description of their game. To me, it looked like there weren't many chances in it. They kind of cancelled each other out quite a bit. But for me, that's 2 sides that I'd say, well, for want of a better term, up and running. They're sides that are looking like they're going to be competitive at the very least in this division. Right, very quickly, because we've still got so much more to cover. I'm just going to rattle through the last 6 games, and then we'll move straight on to the preview of midweek. So we had Barnet finally scoring a goal. They lost 2-1 to Walsall, but they did actually finally score. But they just made things too difficult for themselves, really, if we're being honest. There's a good goal by Connor Barrett. But I don't know. I think Barnet is just defensive. Well, not even just defensively, because they're struggling. As I said, they're struggling for goals as well. I think it's just a big learning curve for them. And in the end, it's a solid away win for Walsall. Maybe made it a little bit harder for themselves than they needed to by letting Barnet get one back. But outside of that, solid result. You then had Cambridge and Harrogate drawing 1-1. And I mean, for Cambridge's goal, that's just Harrogate reacting very poorly to a short corner routine. And it's another game where Cambridge created plenty of chances, just couldn't necessarily put it in the back of the net, although I think a few saves were made, in fairness. But they were eventually punished, and Duke McKenna showed up with a lovely acrobatic finish, actually. So honours even there. You then had Crewe versus Crawley, which was 1-0 to Crewe. As we said previously, carrying on their perfect record, a goal from O'Reilly. But in terms of the finishing quality for the rest of that game, not great. But I still think it was a comfortable game for Crewe. If I'm being totally honest, I think they played relatively well without the finishing. I'd say the only real problem they had was when Tom Booth, I think, very nearly fumbled the ball just outside his own box, but he managed to recover it, so it was fine. But for me, Crawley, I think the only time they looked like a genuine threat was at the end of the game with a bit of a goalmouth scramble. But outside of that, still not convinced. That's us losing to them on Tuesday now. You then got Oldham 1, Swindon 2, which was just a terribly slow start for Oldham. They were 2 down in under 20 minutes. They did manage to bring 1 back through Joe Quigley, but I don't know. I still feel like Swindon probably could have scored a whole lot more goals. I know Harry Smith missed a sitter in that one, so Oldham perhaps a little bit fortunate there. Then we've got Salford-Accrington, which was 2-1 Salford. Both goals for Salford, absolutely fantastic strikes. But I do think the injuries, I know Jake was saying, I think they've got quite a lot of injuries at the minute. And I do think it's hindering their performance a little bit. They still had enough to beat Accrington, but I do feel like they were off it just a little bit. And then Accrington, I think the less said, the better, to be honest. Just statistically, the quality of their chances were just poor, very poor. And I think there are going to be some of those days for them that season. And finally, you've then got Shrewsbury v Colchester, which was 2-0 to Colchester. Finally, actually looking a bit more lively. It was poor defending for the opening goal, but that second goal was just comical in nature. I mean, Shrewsbury essentially sent Colchester through on their own goal. But they are unacceptable errors, and this whole slow start thing, we've kind of discussed a lot of Bristol Rovers as well. But at least for Colchester, I suppose it's them getting a much needed result just to get them up and running. Is there anything you'd like to mention from any of those 6 games?
I think it's probably worth mentioning, obviously, Crewe, 3 wins from 3, very good for them. I've always said I think they needed to hit the ground running this season, and they've certainly done that. 6 goals scored, 1 goal conceded, 9 points picked up out of a possible 9. I don't think you could really ask for much more from them. I mean, Shrewsbury certainly a concern. 2-0 defeat at home to Colchester. I look at the second goal in particular. Great ball from George Lloyd to find Kyrie Lisby of Colchester. I mean, look, it's not quite. I say George Lloyd. That's George Lloyd of Shrewsbury. If you saw the goal, I think it was for Lisby's goal. Of course, Shrewsbury finished the game with 10 men as well. 1 point picked up. 0 goals scored in the league. Just a 1 shot on target as well from. Just a 1 shot on target in 8 attempts there. Look, good win for Swindon. I mean, like I said, they sort of took the front hold in the game, 2 up in the first 20 minutes. They concede, but managed to get the win. Another 2 goals scored for them, another 1 conceded. So maybe in question marks, I should mention Barnett off the mark in terms on the score sheet, but not on terms of points. I mean, losing to Walsall again. The damage was done. 2 goals in the first 22 minutes from Walsall, and it sort of looked pretty set from there. I mean, Barnett looked to be doing some of the right things as well. And I saw that that offer ball was sent off as well for a second yellow. So, I mean, like I said, they're off the mark in terms of goals, but they need to start translating that into points. I've certainly found it hard since they've come back up. I'm just going through it quickly. Look, good point for Harrogate. They started the season off pretty well. I think that's something that they shouldn't be sniffed at. Really good finish from Stephen Duke McCann. He's another player that I quite like as well. And another goal for Louis Pierre as well, another summer signing for Cambridge, as you've mentioned. Salford, good win for them. A couple of good strikes as well from Ben Woodburn and Luke Garbutt. You always sense that I think they probably were going to win the game. I just sort of felt it at the start, and I think that's everyone I've touched on. I think I mentioned Swindon, mentioned the thingy game, mentioned that one. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all. I was just making sure. Just get a quick say now.
Right. Okay, that is all 12 of the games that have actually been played covered. We've done that bit now, which means we can finally move on to the preview section. And of course, we're going to have a little go at the predictions as well. Well, I'm not. Jordan is. It's his turn. I don't think, like I said, we've not released the stats for how the weekend one did. I think I lost. I don't know for sure, but I mean, I was up against John Harries anyway. If I was going to lose to anyone, I'm pretty happy for it to be him, to be fair. But it is that would be our first loss of the season. But let's let Jordan have his turn. So we've got Bristol Rovers versus Oldham, which for me is an absolutely huge game for both sides. I think both really just need a win at some point. I'd say even more so for Bristol Rovers, just because the whole vibe I get from that club at the minute is just incredibly negative. They just need something to go their way. But I don't know. What's your take on it, and what are you predicting?
Yeah, totally agree. I think it's a bigger game for Bristol Rovers, probably because they're yet to get that point. I know that Oldham have picked up a couple of points. I think they may have been a little bit unlucky that they've not picked up more, especially that Colchester game. It looked like they played pretty well, and I don't really know how they won the game. But yeah, I think, like I said, both teams just need that win, don't they? I think to really get them going. And like I said, more so for Bristol Rovers. And you know what? I'm feeling this will be the game in which Bristol Rovers will break their duck. I think in terms of scoreline, I think we'll go 2-0.
Nice. Now, second game, Cheltenham versus Bromley. And I mean, for me, you'd hope there's a reaction out of Cheltenham after a 5-0 defeat, but I don't think they're going to have it easy because, as we've alluded to earlier, Bromley look very good. So I'm personally not sure I can see a result coming for them just yet. But do you think they have the capacity to take down Bromley?
I won't say, look, it's League Two, isn't it? I won't say no. It's no doubt going to be very difficult, especially when you've not scored yet. I know that, like I said, we've mentioned the games they've had. They've played MK Dons and they've played Chesterfield their first two, but like I said, I just feel like there's things that are so uncertain about Cheltenham at the minute that I think I need to see what they're doing in the next few weeks. Like I said, Bromley, they start the season very well. I think they'll go there and pick up another result. I think Cheltenham will score, though. I've just got that feeling that they will. But I think Bromley will win. I think I'll go for 2-1 Bromley.
Very nice. And the next game is Colchester versus Cambridge. Obviously Colchester just got their win, and I think the return of Jack Payne's certainly boosted them. Whereas for Cambridge, they've looked the most solid of the relegated sides, but they're not the most clinical as of yet. I think this is quite a tricky one to predict. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I'd probably agree. And I'm probably going to go and sit on the fence on this one. Just from that alone, like you said, Colchester started pretty strongly. Could have maybe have had more points. Cambridge haven't done too badly so far, but yeah, it's quite hard to tell. I won't say it's quite the 0-0. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw.
Yeah, I'd say that's a reasonable shout. I probably would have gone with something similar myself. And the next one, is of course the grudge match. Well, I don't know, maybe not grudge match, but certainly the Scott Lindsay derby is of course Crawley taking on my lads, the MK Dons. I have no clue what to expect from this game because we know, like, Scott Lindsay likes his sides to play out from the back, but I don't think that would work against us. I'm kind of wondering if he's just going to sit back and kind of catch us on the counter or something, or if they're just going to be stubborn and stick to it, in which case maybe happy days for us. But I don't know. I think it's a tricky one to call.
What I'm hoping for is another Scott Lindsay masterclass against MK Dons. We've seen it in the past. Can I just bring up the playoffs again? Yeah, I might as well. It's all right now. You've got a load of money. You're splashing it, and you might have scored 5 yesterday, and apparently Aaron Collins scores hat tricks in 5 minutes or something daft like that.
You're mentioning it now.
This is what you've done, and I blame you for it. In reality, I think MK will win this. I think they'll win it quite comfortably. I guess you're away, aren't you? I'm gonna say 2-0.
Did you add another 6?
Yeah, I mean, look, I won't put it past you, but no, no. The short answer is no. You're not.
Oh well, we'll have to wait for Tuesday. Next one is Fleetwood versus Crewe, and this has got to be one of the big games of the midweek. You got 2 unbeaten sides, one with a perfect record, one that's just lost their perfect record but recovered a point. How are you going to figure this one out?
Yeah, it's a very difficult one to start because both teams have had very good starts to the season. In Crewe's case, a perfect start to the season. I might sit on the fence. Or should I? Or should I go bold? Yeah, I'm going to go bold, actually. Fleetwood to win 1-0.
Okay. I actually kind of like that prediction, low-key. That could actually come in.
Something different.
I could see it. And actually, the next one is arguably just as big. You've got Gillingham versus Chesterfield, and as I mentioned earlier, I think Gillingham are unbeaten since like March or something ridiculous. And Chesterfield have a perfect record, 3 wins out of 3. So something's got to give. But who's going to let their fans down this one?
Yeah, so look, I think if Chesterfield go there and win, it'll be an excellent result for them. It won't be an easy game, especially with how Gillingham are, as we've mentioned with Gareth Ainsworth. They'll be a tough nut to crack. This one I might just sit on the fence for. I think that Chesterfield have the quality, but like I say, you know what Gillingham are all about. They'll grind. Again, I'm going to go for a 1-1. I don't think there's quite enough comes there for a nil. I'm more for the equality there, especially of a Chesterfield attacking threat. I just feel like Gills might nick something again. I just sort of get that vibe from it, if I did.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the hardest games to predict.
Yeah, that's a difficult one, that one.
Well, to be fair, I think you've got it quite tough this week anyway. To be honest, there are a lot of tricky ones, and the next one's Harrogate versus Barrow. Harrogate started really well, better than I think most people expected them to. Barrow obviously had the slow start, but they've finally got their win after 3 games. This could be quite a tricky contest.
It could be, and I'm really debating. I probably won't sit on the fence again, but it's one of those games that I feel could go either way. Now Barrow have got that win under their belts, they'll be a little bit more confident. As we've mentioned, Harrogate, they started the season pretty strongly. Harrogate are at home. I'm going to go for 2-1 Harrogate, I think.
Very nice. And the next one is, well, maybe won't mean so much to everyone else, but to us, this is a big one. It's Newport versus Salford, the second 4th tier fever matchup of the season. Second in a row for Kieran as well. I'm sure he's loving it. Whose side are you backing?
I mean, poor Kieran, it'll be 3 in a row by this time next week. So that table's going to look rather interesting already, considering we've not had August yet. We've not finished the month of August yet, and Kieran's already played 3 matches in there. No, look, I was full of praise for Newport, actually. Like I said, we mentioned Salford with the injuries. I don't think it'll be an easy game for Salford. I do fancy them to get a result, though. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go for 2-0 Salford.
Okay, that's an interesting one. The next one, Swindon versus Barnet, which on paper, the way things have been going, could be routine. I mean, it can't get any worse for Barnet, can it?
Well, I'm not going off Mick McCarthy because I'm not. This could. I know that Barnet have only scored 1 goal, but I feel like this could be a game in which has the potential to be a very exciting one in terms of goals. We know how Swindon like to play under Ian Holloway. They're a little bit kamikaze at times, and you sort of starting to get a little bit of a vibe with that with Barnet, albeit, like I said, they've only really scored 1 goal in the league. I think there will be goals in this game. I fancy Swindon to win it, though. I'm going to go for 3-2 Swindon. I think it'll be a really fun game, actually.
Certainly one for the neutral. That's one to tune into if you get the chance, according to our expert. The final. I'm being nice.
I mean, not that far, but I've not called Holloway every name under the sun yet, so I'm all right, I guess.
Well, we've now got one game left of Tuesday and a Wednesday one. The final Tuesday game is your lot, so it's Walsall at home to Grimsby. You going to back yourselves to win?
Oh, we get grace with it being on Sky Sports Football as well. For the nation to see. Look, Walsall's tough. We had a very good trip to Walsall last season. Had a very good result there. I feel like Walsall have had a number of recent years. We've had a couple of batterings from them. But we've also had some good games against Walsall even. I'd be delighted with a point. Truth be told, away from home, tough place to go. Walsall have started relatively decent themselves. There's a part of me that thinks it has enough to beat him, but I think this is a different type of test to what we've already had, to what we've already faced. I'm going to go for a 1-1. I'm just going to go for a result, mainly because I don't really want to back us to lose, but yeah, look, tough place to go, as I mentioned. I'll quite happily take the draw, to be honest.
Sitting on the fence again. And the final game, it's the Wednesday game, and I mean, it's Notts County versus Shrewsbury. Yeah, this is going to be probably not a great game, to be honest. You've got 2 teams that are underperforming quite badly so far this season. I know, again, only 3 games, all the rest of it. But, I mean, one of them's got to pick up at some point. Will either of them get it this on Wednesday?
Yeah, look, it sort of feels already that it's a must-win for both. I think with the start and the circumstances around, both clubs at the minute, I can't see it being the best game of football in the world. It probably won't be pretty. I do think there'll be a winner, though. I'm itching towards Notts. I think they'll get off the mark. I'm going to go for a 1-0.
And there you have it. That's all of the midweek games covered. So that's pretty much it for this episode. I don't know who you're going to be predicting against as of yet, so don't know if we'll have anyone by the time this goes out or not. So just in case, I'll say if you are interested in challenging us to at these predictions, then let us know, and maybe you'll be included, and you can face off against one of our hosts. But that is all for this episode. Of course, we have to thank our sponsors, Sky Bet. And of course, if you have enjoyed this episode, then make sure you share it where you can. Comment, subscribe, all the rest of it. Jordan does this so much better than me. I should honestly just hand this over to you now, really, because I'm terrible at the outro.
I'm not doing it all again. I'm not exactly the host in this one. Yeah, what I would say though, if you ever fancy coming on the podcast, like I said, we mentioned about predictions. We're always looking for people to come on the preview shows. I know it was quite difficult last week because of the Carabao Cup and all that, and conflicting time schedules. But we're probably going to be doing something on Wednesday this week, because of those games in League Two. Like I said, if you ever just fancy it in general, let us know. And we'll look to get you on. Follow Twitter, and we'll get the graphics out as well for the predictions as well at some point. We'll keep you up to date, and that'll be the first place that you'll know. We'll share them on Wednesday anyway, where we are, and we'll add in the games on Tuesday to add to it as well. But yeah, just the usual stuff. Like, comment, subscribe, download it. I sound like I'm really on there. And it was my fault for staying up till about 3 o'clock last night. I was out in Clay. Not like you really needed to know, or not like anyone cares, but there you go. It was sort of, and that was the sort of vibe I got from it, is the fact that, it was, I sort of just put Luke on the spot. I know I'm waffling on a little bit, so I should probably pass back to him. Have a good day, everyone.
I was going to say I got you back there, but you put you on the spot for the outro. But as we were saying, we always appreciate the support as well, and we do try and interact as best we can with all the comments, whether it's Twitter or YouTube, all the rest of it. We're always about, and we're always looking to improve and bring you the best content that we possibly can. But that is all for this episode. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we will catch you next time at Fourth Tier Fever.
Thanks once again to our partners for this episode, Sky Bet. Sky Bet understands the beautiful chaos of being a football fan. The highs, the lows, the heartache and the glory. It's all part of the ride, and we wouldn't trade it for anything. Not for everyone, for the fans. Sky Bet, 18+, gambleaware.org.